You don't want to spend 80% of your time connecting with people who have nothing to do with what you're trying to build and what you're trying to create and who you're trying to coach. How do you know who you're supposed to follow up with? It's really hard to go call after call after call and not have a new client come in. If you're going to become their coach, or if you're going to support them at all, you're going to need to tell them how it is and be a little more direct than you might otherwise be. Coaches Nation, welcome to the Coaches Journey podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Fernandez, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about what we've learned when it comes to outreach as a coach. It's obviously one of the most important things you do. Do you not agree? If you don't agree, you really need to listen today. And as you go out and develop your clientele, part of what you're doing is doing outreach to people in your network, out of your network. It depends for you, who you are. And so as you do that, we want to talk about the 5 different things that make you fail at that outreach. So if you think about outreach as a service, I want to just start off as a frame. Outreach is a service to people. And so it's trying to make a difference for others. You're not outreaching just to get your clients. You're outreaching to people so that you can make a difference for people, so that you can add value to people that you're connecting with, so that you can help others, right? That's kind of like what humanity is all about, right? How can we help each other? And so I wanted to start with, the first challenge that makes you fail at outreach. Sometimes we forget that it's about service, that it's about impact. And so we can be selfish. We can be thinking, I'm only here to get clients. This is the whole point. And it is a point of doing the outreach. It's part of it. But I'm only here to get clients. And when you take the approach of I'm only here to get clients, people can tell. People know whether you're just here to sell them something or you're here to actually genuinely connect. And so you got to think about your own mindset. Are you actually out to genuinely connect? And the way I like to think about this is, some of these people may become clients. Some of these people may become part of my network. Some of these people may actually be here to help me. Whatever the case is, I'm open to where that connection is going. So if I'm reaching out to somebody who I haven't talked to in a few years, it could be just catching up with them, and who knows whether that will go somewhere. And so get out of the mindset that this is all about clients. It's all about coaching. It is also about that. But as you go and do your outreach, part of that will just happen naturally, and you'll feel really good about what you're giving back to the world. Because if it's all about you, people notice that, and they're less likely to actually get, even if they would have been a client, they're less likely to actually want to do that. Because you have to make it about them. That's my number one rule in coaching. It's not about you. So everything comes back to that. So don't be selfish. Instead, be generous. You're here to make a difference, to support others, whatever that looks like, in whatever way you can do that. And so hopefully you'll speak as though you're trying to help, because you are. Speak as though you're trying to connect, because you are. And sometimes the person on the other end may be the person that you need to buy something from, maybe the person that you need support from. You never know. So be open and don't be selfish, be generous. So a great way to fail at outreach is just to be selfish, just to go out and look out for yourself and only yourself. Now, that's not to say that as you do this, you won't be able to generate business for yourself. Of course you will. And how you align with that mission is important. You don't want to spend 80% of your time connecting with people who have nothing to do with what you're trying to build and what you're trying to create and who you're trying to coach, because that is a formula for having no time to build your business. But as you go about figuring out who you should connect with and shouldn't connect with, you can connect with more likely on people that are actually going to align with your direction. And that doesn't mean everybody needs to become your client. There's different ways to align. But keep in mind, are you being generous with your connections with people, or are you being selfish? And here's another way to notice this. Way number two to fail at outreach is to be impersonal. And impersonal means you are just spamming people, or you are not actually reaching out in a way that makes them feel connected. So if you're going to be outreaching with people, try to make it personal. Try to be connective with them. If you meet somebody on the street, we always like, hey, who are you? What do you do? And people are just like, oh, this is what I do professionally. But that's not, people aren't one-dimensional people. There's a lot more to them, as you know, as a coach. And so part of it is exploring the connection and finding out who somebody is and actually making them feel like you're connecting genuinely because you want to, not because they're just a cog in your system. They happen to be somebody in your system. We'll talk about that in a moment. What about your system? But make the effort to be personal with people as much as you can. So that's number 2. Don't be selfish, be generous. Don't be impersonal, be personal. Let's go to the third way that you can fail at outreach as a coach. The third way is being uncommitted to the process of outreach. And that looks a lot of different ways, right? Like, think about this. If you're uncommitted, you're not going to have the discipline to have a system, to have a list of people that you're connecting with. You're not going to have the discipline to go into that system and think about, who are the people that I'm here to help today? Who are the people that I need to connect with? Because, people will trust you less if they sense you're disorganized. If you can't be reliable in how you show up for them. And you'll trust yourself less too if you're feeling disorganized. So think about these questions. Do you know what stages of your process people are in? Are they just a connection? Are they an actual lead for your business? Are they actually, someone you've had a discovery session with? Do you know what stage they're in your business? And are they somebody who is not a potential client? Maybe they're somebody who's a connector. Maybe there's someone who is, a social person in your network that has another function. It's not necessarily true that everybody has to become a client. But when we're talking about a coaching business, you have to know who the clients also are. So part of your outreach will generate clients. And if it's not generating clients or potential clients, then you've got to modify what you're doing as well. But if you think about, do you know what stages all their people are in? Do you know who they all are? You know which ones are your top leads? Do you ever forget to follow up with someone? Do you do what you tell people you're going to do, or do you forget, or do you not, follow up on that stuff? This is why don't be uncommitted. Be organized. You need to be organized and have a system where you're gathering all the information. That means you're going to have to do some things that you might otherwise not think to do, which is have a list of all your people. The simplest way to get organized is just have a list of all the names of all the people, and then bold the ones that are your top leads. Because if you don't know who the ones to follow up first with are from a business perspective, you're just going to get lost. So that's the simplest version of, being organized that you can think of. And you will eventually need to organize in other ways. Like maybe people, you want to know, like, what's their preferred communication method? Maybe you know that off the top of your head when you see their name. Like, what platform are you using to message with them? And so on. And so that being said, like, get organized and make sure that you have a system, whatever that system is. Sometimes you can use a variety of systems. Whatever your system is, make sure that it works for you. And I think about the question I've been asking myself about my system, which is, how can my system tell me how to approach this? Can it tell me what I need to do next, who I need to follow up with next? If it's not doing that, you might need to help yourself by modifying how your system works. Some people like to use Trello, where they have like a list of all the people they like to connect with. And then the next board of the Trello is they move people from that section to the next section, which is people that they would like to have a call with, or that wanted to have a call with them. And then the next one is like, this is the different stages of your pipeline. People who are clients would go through the different stages. People who are not going to become clients, maybe they'll go through a different stage. But whatever the system is, whether you use Trello, I personally use a spreadsheet because I love spreadsheets. And I've tried different ways to do things. Some people use something like Pipedrive or, Zoho or whatever CRM system you use. Just make sure that you're using one that helps you be organized in your own. Because a lot of the times we think the answer is tech. Let me get a tech solution. And so you'll go in and set up your tech solution, but you won't have the discipline in using it. So half the battle of being organized is building the habit of doing the system. And this is, I want to spend a little time here because it's a really important part of outreach, is like, how do you do your system? What are your habits? What are your routines? What do you do? Like for me, my system has evolved many times, and I've tried a lot of systems that didn't work because they were too complicated, because I tend to overcomplicate systems because I grew up as an engineer. And so today I'm trying to keep it simple, but not too simple and not too complex, right? So that it can do the things that I want. So the question you could ask yourself is like, do I have a daily habit? And I think daily is the right habit for most people. Do I have a daily habit of spending time going into my system and figuring out who I need to reach out to, doing the follow-ups? How do you know who you're supposed to follow up with? Does your system tell you that? It should, in order for you to take the next step. Now, if you have a photographic memory and you can keep everything up there, I don't know anybody that has that level of photographic memory. If you want to build a coaching business, you're going to have dozens, then hundreds of people and more in your system. So keeping that all up here, I don't know anybody that can do that. But if you can do that, good for you. For the rest of us humans, mere mortals, you're going to need that system. And that brings us back to like, How frequently are you doing it? That's one discipline. And then what are you doing in that time? Are you spending, an hour figuring out what that one text message you're going to send this person? Sometimes for a very high value lead, that's worth it. And somebody who's much later in the stages. But for most people, you have to build up your skill set about how quickly can I get through my process. And that makes you more efficient with your time. So if you're really organized, you're also thinking about how can I improve my system? Part of being organized is improvement, and that systems improvement that you need to do. If you realize that, like, okay, this system's not working for me because I'm forgetting to do all these little follow-ups that I'm supposed to do, well, how could you modify your system to make sure that you don't forget? That's part of being organized. So like, if you're not willing to go to the level of having a list, having a system, having a discipline and a frequency and a process by which you go about that, then I would argue that you might be uncommitted to the people that you're trying to help, right? What's the next level of commitment? What's the next level of organization that you need in your own system so that you can actually make the difference for people? Because if people are falling through the cracks and you never got to, help change their life or even give them that little push that they needed, whatever the case may be, then you're missing that opportunity to make that difference, right? And so at some level, being organized is something you have to do. If you like getting organized, great. If you don't like getting organized, maybe you need to skill up a little bit here and start to at least learn to do it in a way that works for you, that is becoming a habit. Forming that habit helps you go from uncommitted to organized. And the last what I want to talk about is sort of around our expectations. A great way to fail, we've talked about four, right? We've talked about 4 ways to fail: being impersonal instead of being personal, being selfish instead of being generous, being indirect instead of being direct, and being uncommitted instead of organized. The 5th way to fail is being impatient. A lot of the time, and I've been through this myself, so I get it. And I've set up systems that were beautiful, and 2-3 months in, I'm like, this isn't working. And I got really impatient and I stopped. And I didn't continue that process. The challenge is it's right at that moment, about 3 months in, where things actually really are working. And you're gaining momentum because you're building a habit and people are starting to get in communication with you. And part of that challenge is, like, if you're impatient because you're thinking only about the clients aren't coming, well, this is a very, very short-term view that you're experiencing. I don't want you to not expect instant results. That's really hard. It's really hard to go call after call after call and not have a new client come in for weeks. And sometimes that happens. But if you have enough of a system, if you're organized enough and you're generous enough and personal enough and direct enough, because if you're doing all those things in the system and you have that discipline, you've built up that muscle, then eventually, with patience and commitment to that process, people will become clients. Your job is to just become really good at that. Right? Zig Ziglar said, you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help other people get what they want. And that's why you need to be organized. And I realized the third one I mentioned, being indirect versus direct, we didn't actually talk about that. Let me get back into that. I'll come back to impatience versus patience. Being indirect is also a great way to fail at your outreach. If you're really indirect and you're like afraid to say something in your outreach, then you could have a challenge with helping people move forward through your process, or even move forward in their own life, right? Because if you're so worried about what people think that you're not willing to be direct, which is the solution to being too indirect, you'll fail by being too indirect. The solution is to be direct in the right way. And part of that is being a leader of the conversations across your life, but especially in this outreach process. Like, you need to explore to get context of who this person is, what their challenges are, where you can support each other potentially. So don't beat around the bush too much. Lead that conversation forward. Make some progress with that conversation. It's not just a catch-up call. There's an exploration there. And if you want to support someone, or if you think they could benefit from support, you get permission. That's part of being direct. And so you might invite them to take an action on the call or on the connection. You might invite them in the messaging, like, hey, if you'd like support on that, let me know, and I'll be happy to do a call with you. You might send them a link to your calendar. Or you can book a call, a focus call. Maybe you're doing a connection call with somebody and you say, hey, would you like more support on this? And if they're like, yeah, I would, then you say, like, let's get on a call together. That's a very direct thing to do. You're making them an opportunity to get support. And you tell them, let's schedule this right now. Do next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Does that work for you? That's called being direct. Don't beat around the bush with that stuff. You need to show people that you know how to support them and you're willing to support them in an effective way. And part of that effectiveness is you being direct, because if you're going to become their coach, or if you're going to support them at all, you're going to need to tell them how it is and be a little more direct than you might otherwise be. If this is an area for you of growth, if you're being really indirect with people, think about how you can be direct in a respectful and helpful way, right? And maybe it's not about them becoming client. Maybe it's about somebody they could connect you with. Maybe you have an ask to make of them. Well, if they know 3 people that you really want to get in touch with for business reasons or otherwise, you can ask them, hey, could you get me in touch with this person? Don't be afraid to be direct. So we talked about being impersonal, selfish, indirect, uncommitted, and impatient. And so let's get back to the impatience. Like, what I want you to do is think about how long this could take. And it could go fast to get to your next client. It could also take longer. But what we want to do is build a sustainable system that, because you're disciplined, your commitment to being organized, every day you're doing the actions, you're playing this long game, not the reactive game. Like, I haven't done my outreach in 3 weeks, and somebody miraculously contacted me. Let me react to that. Instead, we want you to get you really proactive and patient, playing that long game. It's a marathon, right? You have a lot of options in your pipeline. That way you're not freaked out by just one. If you're the one lead you have saying, no, I don't want to coach with you right now. Now you're like, oh, back to square one. I feel rejected. I don't have any other leads that I'm working on. Like, the more you do this outreach, the more you're going to have those leads in your pipeline. Like, think about it. If you are going for a job offer, an interview, and you have 5 interviews with different companies lined up, you're going to be in a really good position to negotiate if you have multiple offers from these companies, right? Just the same way, like, if you have many leads coming in, you don't need to worry and be icky with that one lead. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. And the way to do that is to be patient and organized, and do that outreach process week after week after week, day after day after day, and keep on keeping on with it. Being in touch and organized with as many leads as you need helps you with your confidence too, because you are more confident. And also it makes them feel more confident in you, because you don't need this one sale. So it's like, yes, you need people to buy from you for this business to be sustainable. Absolutely. But any single person in front of you does not need to be the person who you project all your insecurity onto. They don't want that from you, and that doesn't help serve them, right? You don't want to pressure them into becoming your client because they're your only lead. You want them to choose to do that because it's really good for them. And if they choose not to, if it's not the right decision for them, that's okay too. Because for you, you've made a difference for them. You've gotten them some clarity, or whatever you did with them in that session, and help them make the decision whether to buy coaching or not. And then you have somebody else who also would like your support. So if you have enough of those people in your pipeline, so to speak, it's going to make a difference. And you're going to be able to have that confidence that not everybody needs to say yes. And that will hopefully give you a sense of patience. So if you really want to fail at coaching, make your outreach impersonal, make it selfish, all about you, make it indirect, and don't ever lead people forward. Be uncommitted and therefore disorganized, and be impatient with the process because you want instant results. Those are all great ways to fail at the outreach. And that's one of the reasons, like, if one of these things is missing, if one of those things is present, it's going to also stunt your outreach. You might have 4 of them down and 1 of them not down. Work on all of them. Make sure you think about, am I being personal with people? Am I being generous with people? Am I being direct and leading that conversation? Am I being organized and disciplined with my approach and my follow-up? Do I do what I say I'm going to do? And am I patient with this process? Because it takes time to build your own muscles and your own reps and your own ability and discipline to do that. And for people to come through the stages, it takes time. And if you are in an urgent rush because you're broke, then maybe this is not the place to focus. Maybe you need to get another source of income or some other way to sustain yourself, because this game is all about patience with outreach. So thanks for listening and joining the Coach's Journey today. Hope you enjoy our podcast. We have so many other episodes that are relevant to this topic. And we have one podcast on distractions that is totally relevant, because it's easy to get distracted instead of staying focused on being organized. And that most important thing, and this is where it's uncomfortable for people. So don't get distracted, stay organized and stay focused. So I should add a 6th one, distracted versus focused, because that is really, really important part of the outreach. So if you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe or leave us a comment below or wherever you see this, and consider joining our community where we actually help people make their outreach personal, generous, direct, organized, and patient, so that they can actually build up their clientele and build up their coaching businesses. That's what we do. Every single week, we take our pro members through their own clienting journey and help them with where they're at. And they all have different barriers. Some people are really struggling to be organized. Some people are really struggling with the messaging. Some people are really struggling with making those offers right at the end of the stages. Some people are really struggling with a different piece of it. There's so many layers of this. And so if you as a coach are struggling to make your outreach consistent and organized, part of that could be internal. It's like it takes a lot of emotional energy to work through the layers of the barriers that can prevent us from doing this. Even if we know the way we need to do it from a technical perspective. So go to cmc.coach, join our community, message us, let us know what your challenges. We're here to help. So we'll be happy to get on a call with you if you need that kind of support and figure out like, what is it that's going to move your coaching business forward. In the meantime, we hope to see you in our community where we have lots of free resources and help for you there. Or maybe you can become one of our pro members that we like to support even more than that. So with that, thank you for your, being an audience of the Coach's Journey podcast. Please share this with other coaches who you think would benefit from it as we continue to add value for you through the podcast.